speak to you a moment. Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Feed my lambs and feed my sheep." You might think you're all sheeped up, but you're still to me just lambs. As the older I get, I'll be talking with Miss Terry when I get home, and I said, "This little girl was checking me out at Walmart." She said, "How old was she?" Said, "She's probably about 40, 50, I guess." It seems like I'm older and they're younger. It's good to see you, and I do appreciate you sitting according to size. It's been my joy and my privilege to have Addison in Sunday school since last Sunday. We started a new Sunday school class, or maybe it's not starting anything new at all, but anyway, I've been very jealous of Terry and Liz for being able to teach these girls in Sunday school, for Liz primarily their Sunday school teacher, since they were born, and I asked for the privilege of plus Addison's just really tired of Avery. She just but Avery, one day, if you do not straighten up, you will have to be my student too. So you'll be punished like Sissy is. Pops will be your teacher. Well, Amy was with us today. We've been studying languages, the languages of the Bible, and our names, and what God named us through our parents. Carter, there's a PowerPoint on that desktop called Aleph. See if you can find. There we go. There's Aleph. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And then when we talk about, I just introduced Amy and Addison to a song, Aleph, Bet, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and it's a song for learning the Hebrew alphabet. And it's, to me, catchy. I don't know if it's the top 40 for you. But Aleph, we talk about the alphabet. Well, the alphabet. There are many, many languages throughout the world where the first letter in their alphabet kind of sounds like an aleph or an alpha. And when we talk about an alpha male or an alpha athlete, we're talking about number one. Jesus said, I'm the beginning and the end. I'm the first letter of the alphabet and the last. He said, I'm the first and the last. So that's what an aleph looks like. Let me tell you a little bit about it, because every single piece and part of the Bible, the Word of God, even each letter has great importance in it. And what he calls things. One of the first things he did with Adam in the Garden of Eden, he came out and he said, I want you to name all the animals. And he says, really? A monkey? Anyway, Harper was just showing me a monkey, and so I don't see if she can say monkey. Let's go to the next slide there, Carter. I want to run through these quickly. Now, Addison's middle name is Elizabeth. Addison Elizabeth Buell. And so she's named after my mother and after her aunt, Elizabeth. And also Terry's mother's name, she is Beth. So it is Elisheba. Elisheba. And it means, let's look at the next slide, Carter. It means God's promise. It's like that old Gaither song. It says, I am a promise. I am a possibility. I am a promise with a capital P. Well, that's what the word Elizabeth means. I don't know if your parents knew if that's what Elizabeth meant. They probably were just naming you after some notable people in our family. And there are probably others too, but it means God's promise. God's promise is something you can count on. It's something to build your life on. And if you are God's promise, then that's a name you can live by. Let's go on to the next slide. Avery. Your name is not a biblical name. It's not a Hebrew name. It has Anglo-Saxon. Now, Amy, I didn't know that you were going to be here while I was preparing this. But let's look. Avery means ruler of elves. And I think, yeah, that's it. That's a ruler of elves.
And wise. We looked it up. And wise.
And wise. Yeah, it also means wise. But comes from Alfred, R-A-E-D, Alfred, which is elves, and then Re is ruler of elves. So I think that'll go too. And you have to be very wise and to be a leader. So I did a little, so I don't know if there's another family member in the Buell lineage or in Nair's family, or I don't know of any Averys that we have in the Bain family or Browning, but that is a question, I guess, of whether or not elves actually really exist, but they probably do, and you would be like their leader. So that sounds very important. Let's go on. Let me show you something here. There's the olive. Look at the next slide. Now, all language and written language started out as pictures, pictographs. And so early Hebrew, they needed a kind of a drawing for ox. And ox is in the bovine family, cows and such, cows and heifers. And so the letter A in the alphabet came from an ox head. And then there's Middle Hebrew, Late Hebrew, and then finally, when they would draw the first letter of the alphabet, it means ox. And it was also because the ox is the animal that they depended upon so much for their crops and to plow their fields and to carry their burdens, that the word ox came to stand for strength. Strength. And so that the very first letter of your name starts with an A. It speaks of strength and aid. Now, Emily, you would notice that even Elizabeth actually sounds like Alicia Bai. It actually starts with an A. Probably the same thing as I said with your Emmy probably comes from Emmanuel, and it probably also starts with an A. E's were you asked me at the end of Sunday school what all those little dots were about. That's where an E would come from, and it's kind of just made up. Let's go and look at the next slide. Here's my favorite verse in the Bible about the ox. And listen to this. It's from Proverbs 14:4. It's a little tricky, and I have to be very careful to guide my speech on this because you can get a little crude with this, and I do in my own devotion, but it says, where no oxen are, the manger is clean. There's the dirty part right there. If you have an ox and he's in the manger or in the barn, you're always having to clean that out because of the mess that they make. Where no oxen are, the manger is clean, but much increase comes through the strength of an ox. You know what that means? Your life might be very messy. It might be, it's not that everything's in its place. I've been in your bedrooms. It looks like an ox lives there. It really does. I don't know. Is your bedroom, is it all tidy and bed made and everything? It's straight? Yes. Strange person. Now, when I was growing up, I had magic equipment and I had my models and I had different. I was much like Emily. I had to have things where they were supposed to be. But let me tell you what. What he's saying here is that your life might be a mess. But that's just like the ox. He says, if you're going to have ox, he says, there are a lot of good things come out of being an ox and having an ox. But you're going to have to realize you got to shovel out the manger almost every day, or you'll be knee deep in, well, anyway. Ox stuff. See, I'm doing really good, and maybe it's not even in here. But I keep talking. There are going to be things in your life you're going to say, this is a mess. This is a mess. Emmy's living a mess right now. She's an athlete and a contender. She's a rival and a competitor. And now she's on the sidelines because of injuries. She was just butting people with her head, and that always is going to be dangerous. knocking people down. There's an old story. I'll close with this. I probably shouldn't add this. This makes the land service even longer. But there's a story about this coach, and he was going to send out one of his younger coaches as a recruiter. Now today is appropriate. This is Super Bowl Sunday, but Janet Jackson's not in the halftime show, so I'm not going to watch it. But he was going to send this young coach out to find some new players. He says, all right. He says, let me tell you something. He says, I want you to find that player. Someone's going to knock him down. When he gets knocked down, he just lays there and goes, oh. And the young coach says, we don't want that player, do we, coach? And he says, no. He gets knocked down, he doesn't get back up. He says, there's another player. You knock him down, he'll get up. But if you go out there and knock him down again, he just lays there and goes, oh, I can't do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I quit. He says, coach, we don't want that player, do we? He says, no. And he says, all right, there's this player. He says, you go out there and you knock him down. And he gets up. And he gets back in the game. And someone else comes along and knocks him down. And he gets back up and he gets in the game. And he gets knocked down again. And he gets back up and he brushes himself off and he runs back in. He says, coach, that's the kind of player we want, ain't it? He says, no, we want to find that person that's knocking all those people down. That's who we want. Well, I play football too, and knocking people down is better than being knocked down. Well, ox is probably not a beautiful creature. Perhaps he is to some. Maybe not the kind of thing you'd want to have as a pet, or certainly wouldn't want to have one under the bed. But think of this, that people realize that if you're going to have strength and be a powerful person and be someone who's effective, sometimes things get a little messy. Sometimes things are not even. Sometimes they don't always work out. So it's like a trade-off. Sometimes don't worry about the mess. Now there's a place for things, and things should be tidy and straight. We should be able to put things in order. But sometimes when you're cutting things out or gluing things together or you're building things up, when you're cooking something and when you're assembling something, it involves making a mess. So don't worry about that. Just realize that what you're working toward. Find out what your strength is, what God has given you, and use that, okay? All right. Thank you. Go out there and knock somebody down, okay? Thank you.